Hi, Denise Naylor here. The date for your examination is set. You know where to go. You've studied the subjects. And you want the highest mark you can get. So how do you use your short exam time successfully? Perhaps you're worried that you'll run out of time in the test. Maybe you aren't sure which question to attempt first. Possibly you face a choice of questions and you don't know how to choose which questions to answer. Many students come out of the examination room complaining to me that they did not use the time fully. But how would you feel if you could come out of your exam knowing that you had answered the best questions for you? Imagine if you could come out of your exam feeling confident that you'd used every minute of your exam time to score marks or improve your performance. You see, if you have a strategy for using your exam time successfully, you can improve your result. Let's look at my 6-step process to exam time success that my students have found helpful. Step 1. Take what you are allowed into the exam room. Is your exam open book or closed book? In an open book test, you're allowed to take your books and notes into the examination with you, but not if it's a closed book test. Are calculators permitted? You might be surprised how many students arrive in the exam room without a calculator, or with a calculator that's not approved by the examiner. Some schools specify an exact model, in which case bring that one. And if you are allowed to choose your own, use a non-programmable calculator. If you are allowed to use a calculator, make sure that you can use all the functions on it that you will need in the exam. You might be surprised to learn that students in the exam room have been seen to call over the invigilator and ask them how their calculator works. No, the invigilator won't do that for you. And the invigilator won't supply replacement batteries for your calculator either. So take spare batteries with you. Connecting to the internet may or may not be allowed, so find out beforehand. Will Formulae Tables be provided if that's appropriate for your subject? If not, then you'll have to learn the formulae in advance. And make sure you can carry out any calculations you may need on your calculator without the use of tables. What about dictionaries? If these are allowed, there'll be rules around these, so check it out beforehand. In any test or exam, there'll be a line between what you can take in and what you must leave outside. Find out in advance where that line is for your examination so that you can be prepared, and take in only what you are allowed and make sure you can use it. Step 2. Read your instructions on the test paper. Your instructions are usually found on the front page of the examination paper. How much time are you allowed? How many questions are you required to attempt? Are your questions compulsory, or do you have a choice of questions? And if you have a choice, does this relate to the whole paper or only a part or parts of the paper? Again, you may be able to find this out in advance, and if so, you can be prepared beforehand. Step 3. Read your questions. Have you ever been in a test room where you hear the sound of scrunching paper? That candidate probably rushed in without thinking and now has to start all over again, having lost time. Perhaps you've seen a word or a phrase in a question. Oh, I can answer part A. And when you've written that answer, you then realise that you cannot answer the part B or the part C, so you've lost marks. Here's a better strategy. Read the question, pause, and ask yourself, do I grasp what the examiner is asking for? And can I answer and gain marks in all parts of the question? Speaking of questions, let's get back to those instructions. What strategy do I recommend when your questions are compulsory? Well, you could start at question 1 and work through all the questions in order until you reach the end. You could start with your best subject, and then your next best subject, and so on, leaving to the last the question you feel least confident about. You could start by answering any numerical questions first, and then tackle the written questions. Or if you're more comfortable with written questions, start with the written questions first, and then tackle the numerical questions. You could answer the longer questions first, and then the shorter questions. These are some suggestions, and you'll have your own ideas. What strategy do I recommend when your questions are choice? Well, why is this different? You see, where you have a choice, you have a risk. You risk that you might not choose the right question for you, either because you failed to grasp the instructions or because it's not the question that allows you to shine in your answer. Perhaps when you read your questions, you feel that you can answer parts of every question, but not the whole of any question. Maybe you know the subject, but the way the question is worded leaves you thinking, I don't know how to answer that. Oh. Or maybe when you read your questions, you find that you can answer them all. You could choose your best subject and then your next best subject and so on, leaving to the last the question you feel least confident about. You could choose the questions that seem to have more precise answers, for example, if it's a mathematical paper or you require specialist knowledge to answer. And here, that's where you feel you can score marks easily because you know that specific answer, rather than any more general questions. Or if you feel more comfortable with more general questions, then choose those first. Whatever you do, read all the question parts and make sure that you get what is required before you choose that question. And what if you answer all the questions anyway? Hi examiner, you make the choice, I can't. Then your marker will take the required number of questions in the order in which you answer them and ignore your extra answers. So you'll waste time that you could spend on the questions that will score you marks. Step 4. Decide. Decide your strategy. Whatever your strategy, and it is up to you, you will maximise your marks if you decide what you're going to do and do it. It's dithering, changing your mind, that wastes time and undermines your confidence in the test room. Step 5. Set out your answer book. Once you've decided to attempt a particular question, open an answer sheet in your exam book and open a working sheet. If you aren't sure how much space to allow, then take, for example, 2 pages for your answer and 1 page for your workings. You don't have to fill up every page. And if you need more space, ask the invigilator to bring you an extra book. That's something the invigilator will do. Step 6. Keep yourself to time. Now, before you start writing, don't forget to convert the number of marks to minutes. How? You take the number of minutes divided by the number of marks. So, for example, if the time allowed is 2 hours, which is 120 minutes, and the exam is worth 100 marks, then every mark can take 120 minutes divided by 100 marks, or 1.2 minutes. So what does this mean for a specific question? Well, let's take the example of a 10-mark question. How does that convert to minutes? 10 marks multiplied by 120 and divided by 100 gives me 12 minutes. And if you prefer a formula, the formula here is take the marks, add 20% to give you the minutes. So for our 10-mark question, we take the 10 marks, we add 20% of 10, which is 2. 10 plus 2 gives me 12 minutes. For a formula to help you work out minutes in a 3-hour test, watch my video Success in Written Questions. Once you've converted the number of marks to minutes, you might find it helpful to note the minutes in writing against each question on the test paper, and this will help keep yourself to time. So here are my 6 steps to exam time success. Step 1. Take what you are allowed into the examination room. Step 2. Read your instructions. Step 3. Read your questions. Step 4. Decide your strategy for answering questions and stick to it. Step 5. Set out your answer book. And step 6. Keep yourself to time. And now you're ready to start using every minute of the exam time for your success. Thank you for watching and listening. I wish you great success in all your tests. And do join me again